I'm sorry?
Are you
Yeah.
certified?
Yep.
Okay, so special thanks to Keith. That was a really, really interesting and good lesson on high tunnels. Next up, we have Marvin. He's an organic farmer from the Minot area. His business, North Star Farms, has reached customers from all across the state with his CSA and farmers market and on-farm sales. Marvin's written several books, one including on agriculture and farming. And in his session, producers are going to learn just how you can go organic too. So thank you, Marvin. I'm also going to walk around really quick, you guys, and hand out these just so you have them. Maybe you'll even take us some stuff while he's talking that you would like to hear at the next local food and Pride of Dakota conference. So fill these out. I'll walk him around and he can get started.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want to start out with the point that Christine made there about, yeah, I've written 4 books over the past 20 years, and one of them was supposed to be available at this conference. It's called Against the Grain, and I wrote it in 2018, and it's a digital, it's an ebook, it's digital. So my goal was to make it a hard copy and bring it to this conference to kind of unveil it. Well, I had a lot of vehicle issues. It cost a lot of money since Christmas. And so I wasn't able to, I couldn't scrounge up enough money to have the thing printed. So it's going to have to wait another year. So, and in a nutshell, it's about the local food movement on the northern Great Plains. So thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, so this is about how you can become organic. And there's a few steps you need to go through. It's not as bad as it's, you may hear about. It's trust me, it's a little bit more, it's a little easier than you might think. And it may not cost you as much money as you might think. Okay? So let's see, clicker. Okay, so here's some countries that have their own organic seals. Of course, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the top one, the NOP. That started out about 20 years ago. And Canada has its own through the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. I put Australia up there because 5 years ago, you would have to go into a specialty shop in Sydney or Melbourne to find organic products. Well, today you can find them out in the bush, out in Alice Springs, out in the middle of nowhere. So it's really come a long way in 5 years. So Australia is embracing organic products. So I put up Switzerland also for a reason, because Bioswiss, as it's called, has the strictest organic standards of anybody. So if you want to join Bioswiss, there's a lot more red tape than there is involved with NOP or Canada Biologique. So keep that in mind. But if you do get certified through Bioswiss, you can trade anywhere in the world, and there won't be any questions, because you're already you'd be affiliated with Bioswiss. Okay, so what is organic? There's certified organic, like my wife and myself. We've been organic for 15 years now, and there's a process, a certification, and I'll show you our certificate in a little bit, but that's certified organic. That's, by definition, that's what it is. There's also made with organic products. Okay, so if I took that onion, which is certified, and I got a tomato from somebody who isn't, and I mix those two together and I make salsa, then that salsa is made with organic products, but it's not certified organic, okay? So moving on, then there's some people who say, well, I'm sort of kind of organic. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, it's they don't use a lot of chemicals, but they do sometimes. Sometimes they don't. So, yeah, I'm organic, sort of, kind of. I hear that a lot. But really, they're not organic. If they're using any kind of chemical or fertilizer, petroleum distillate fertilizer, it's not organic in any way, shape, or form. Because if you read through the NOP regulations, it's not happening. Now, I actually met a vendor in Minot. This is several years ago. This is kind of back when Eileen and I first got started. I actually met a vendor who said she was organic and she only used Roundup when she needed to. So I've never forgotten that, and I like to use it in presentations because it's just hilarious. But there is that legal aspect, because you can't just display the seal I showed at the top. You can't just display that. I'll show you a slide later of our farmers market, and we have that seal that we put up every week, every Saturday. We also have the one from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency that we put up every week, because we are certified and we are allowed by law to do that. If you did that and you weren't certified by law, you could be subject to a fine of up to $11,000. So there is that legal aspect of it. Now, there's a loophole, if you will. If you produce less than $5,000 gross annually in your produce, then you can say you're organic and get away with it legally. But if you go beyond $5,000, you're subject to that fine if you say you're organic and you get caught. And we've had a lot of discussions about that over the years.
Who does the checking on that?
What's that?
Who checks you?
We have to check each other. We need to check each other, Steve, because there are people who do that.
Well, of course, but who do you report it to?
The USDA.
Okay, so that's easy to find the right place.
Right, you got to find the right place in the USDA and report it. Okay, so you might find this a little surprising. I'm sure everybody in this room knows that California by far leads the nation in organic production of just about everything. So it's basically 16% of the nation's organic productivity is coming from the state of California. Now, I didn't know this when I was putting this slide together, but Montana comes in second. And that kind of surprised me, because I didn't think Montana was even close to that. This is farmland, not number of farms. It's the amount of farmland. So then we got New York, which has been, they've had an organic movement for a long time. And New York, by geography, is a pretty large state. But there's a lot of urban areas in New York as well. So they come in third. Wisconsin is fourth, and Wisconsin has a lot of organic dairies. And North Dakota comes in fifth. Now that 63% represents the rest of the nation. So that could be Vermont, it could be Alaska, it could be New Hampshire, whatever it is. That's the rest of them. So California's got a pretty good chunk of that. So let's talk about North Dakota a little bit. So we come in number 5 with the amount of farmland. However, we're 27th in the number of farms, meaning the farms that are organic are pretty large farms. The census in 2020 showed us at 117, down from 141, yeah, in 2010, so we're dropping off a bit. To the best of my knowledge, there's at least 5 of us in this state growing certified organic vegetables. And there's 3 of us who are producing certified organic beef products. There may be more, but that's to the best of my knowledge. And the photograph I have up there, that's some children from the Minot Air Force Base that came out last summer and did a tour, and they just absolutely loved it. I sure hope they come back because those kids were fun. I had a blast with them. So keeping along that same path, you know, we talk about, and you may have heard this in schools or you may have seen it on TV, we talk about how we're number 1 in all these different categories, spring wheat and flax and canola and all these things. Well, this is what we're not. With 0 organic honey anywhere in the state, we have 0 organic dairies. There is no organic canola. There's no manufacturers, and there's no organic farmers markets. So we've got a lot of room to grow. And I think...
Organic canola, is there such a thing?
Yes, and I use it when I bake.
But I mean,
But it comes from Brazil.
so I can raise it and sell it to you?
You can,
There's a market out there for organic canola?
yes.
I mean, a large market? I mean,
I don't know. I can't assess that, but yes, I use it when I bake because it's a neutral oil, and it doesn't create odd flavors in your bread or your banana bread or whatever you're baking. So it's certified organic. It either comes from Switzerland or Brazil. And yes, I use it all the time.
I just don't know of any. I mean, we raise, you know, a lot of acres of grains and stuff like that. I've never heard anybody even having a market for organic canola.
Well, there may not be, but there certainly is organic canola on the grocery store shelves. Next time you're in a store, check it out. You'll find it. What's that?
I would have to go to Brazil to find a market.
No, well, but then that Brazil market comes back to the United States and is sold at retail in the United States. So I don't understand, but it's available and I buy it.
Yeah, but there's no markets that I know.
So you buy it in Minot?
Yeah. Yeah. Cash-wise, Minot Air Force Base Commissary, Marketplace Foods.
I just think the question basically is where would a farmer who grew it organically
I don't know.
market it to have it processed in the U.S.? That's the question.
Well, maybe that elevator at Bowbells. I mean, they process organic grains. I don't know if they would handle canola or not, but there's an elevator built specifically for organic grain just north of Bowbells. Okay, so consumer demand continues to grow. And that's part of the reason why North Star has been organic for 15 years, because we're part of that growth, and we like to say that. The USDA has been keeping statistics on this since 2002. Now, there's been double-digit increases in consumer demand almost all of those years. The only exception, there's been 3 years where it hasn't been double digits, but it's been very close, like 8%, 7%, and so on. So it's never been 0 or it's never been negative in 20 years. And most often it's double-digit increases. I talked about California a little earlier. 90% of the people who live in California consume organic products. So I'm not very good with math, but if somebody in here is, what is 90% of 36 million, which is the population of California? What is it?
33 million approximately.
That's a pretty lucrative market, just in the state of California. So these numbers, as you can see, they've been increasing every year or every few years. And projections are by 2035, it could hit 100 billion because of that consumer demand that continues to be there. Christine, I really like this. With the next slide, you can see what's coming up. That's pretty good. Okay, so how do you get certified? What can you do to become certified organic? Well, first thing is contact a certifier, and there's a number of them out there. Some are better than others. Some are a little bit of a challenge, but there's a number of them out there. So it's the first thing you do, and then you have to start a transition period, because the USDA won't certify you until any possibility of chemicals and fertilizers, processed fertilizers are purged from the soil. They assume that takes 3 years or 36 months, and then once that has passed, then you can get certified. Okay? And some people get caught on that, and I get that. I know a guy in Sherwood who decided he was going to transition to organic. And 2 years into that process, he called me and said, I can't handle this. I just can't handle it. And so he fell away from it. So he never did finish his transition period. But once you do that, once you get through that, you'll be in pretty good shape. Because then it gets a lot easier. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. There's a lot of paperwork, or that's what people talk about. People say there's a lot of paperwork. Well, I can tell you that yes, there is a lot of paperwork. And I'll give you an example. When I filled out paperwork to become certified organic in February of 2006, it took me an entire month to fill out all that paperwork and to read through it and make sure it was all correct before I sent it in to the certification agency. So 4 weeks it took me to do all that paperwork. Last year it took me 20 minutes. Over the years you become more efficient, and over the years a lot of those are moving documents or living documents that don't really change, and you don't have to redo them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's only those things that you really need to do, and I'll have a slide coming up about that in a few minutes. You got to find organic seed, and the goal is, or the theory is, that you're planting organic seed during that transition process. So it's the first thing you want to do is go out and find seed that's been certified, and then you plant it, and then an inspector comes and takes a look and makes sure you're not spraying Roundup and still say you're organic. And then you harvest your first crop as an organic crop. And you take it to the farmer's market, and you are the benefactor of that double-digit consumer demand. Yes?
So where do you find organic onions?
High Mowing.
High Mowing?
Yes. I get all my onions from them. That's a seed catalog company in Wolcott, Vermont, if anybody's interested or doesn't know.
Do you start those seeds in? Is that how you get?
What's that?
You don't buy plants, you buy.
It's all seeds. Last year we put down, I think, 16,000 onion plants. They all came out of our own greenhouse, because the theory is you get a better onion if you start it from seed as opposed to sets or living plants.
But there is the stipulation that if you have shown effort looking for a variety and you cannot find organic, you are allowed,
Yes.
when you're certified, to get a non-organic.
That is correct, but
Where you checked.
There is that option, but
that is correct. But in this day and age now, you probably don't need to do that,
no,
because there's enough varieties now that you're probably going to find what you're looking for.
This is some niche, unique, weird
Yes,
variety.
yes,
You would be able to.
good point. Thank you for bringing it up. So this is our certificate. That's good for 2022, and we'll take this to the farmers market when it starts. And it'll be displayed somewhere so people can see that we are indeed certified.
Who's your certifier? I can't read.
What's that?
Who's your certifier?
Where food comes from.
Formerly ICS.
Formerly ICS. It's a company in Castle Rock, Colorado. And I believe I'll be getting into that in a few minutes. Next slide, actually. I just wanted to put that up there because that's, when you go through all that work, that's what you get. You get a certificate that says, yeah, you can do this. It's kind of cool when you first get one. Now it's just, for me, it's just routine, but in 2006, we first got it in October of 06, and it was just like I was dancing in the streets. Okay, so I mentioned there's a number of different agencies. We are certified through Where Food Comes From, which formerly was called International Certification Services Incorporated in Medina. They sold out to Where Food Comes From. And last year was the first year that we dealt with them. And I haven't had that much stress since I was an Army First Sergeant. They manufactured a lot of stress that didn't have to happen. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I could say a lot more, but I'm going to stop there. Okay, ProCert, they certify people in North Dakota. It's a company in Saskatoon, and over the years they've been certifying a few more people. I mean, I don't have numbers, but I know they're increasing their number of farmers in the state of North Dakota. Montana Department of Agriculture, if you live close to the border, that's available. There's Global Organic Alliance. There's Oregon Tilth is a familiar name to a lot of people, but the logistics of communicating with them is kind of hard because they're out on the West Coast. Midwest Organic Services is in Wisconsin, so that one is close enough that you can deal with them and talk to them and call them on the phone and whatever else. Organic Crop Improvement Association, that one is in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they have a lot of people certified in North Dakota. However, they are a little different in that they have clubs or associations, or they have their own, they have little organizations that are part of it. And I know there's one down by Ellendale, and I don't know where the second one is. There's two in North Dakota, and I'm not sure where that second one is located, but one is in Dickey County down by Ellendale. So if you want to go through them, you'd contact the people in Lincoln, and then they'd refer you back to the one in North Dakota, the local one, and then you'd go through them and to pay your dues and all that jazz. So there's a number of them, and there's a number of options.
Who were you certified with before?
ICS,
Out of Medina?
Medina, yeah.
But you still are.
No, it's Where Food Comes From, because ICS doesn't exist anymore.
That's not true. They're still in Medina.
Well, if they are, they fell off the face of the earth.
Not a certifying agency any longer.
That's not true.
Okay.
They're certified through Where Food Comes From out of Medina. They still have the same office.
But they don't.
But it's not ICS anymore.
It's named, it's got a different name, but it still certifies.
But they don't. No, they don't certify us. All of the stuff came out of Colorado last year.
Well, that's the headquarters, but they bought up all these other certifieds. ICS is now Where Food Comes From, but
Yeah.
they're still an office. They still certify just like they always did. It's just got a different name.
No,
Huh?
no. Everything came on.
Cert.
Well, let me clarify that, Steve.
Okay.
Okay, ICS in Medina still exists. It's still there. But anytime I had a question, I would call them, I would email them, and they would immediately refer me to Castle Rock. So then I'd have to talk to this lady out in Castle Rock, Colorado, and she doesn't know the difference between a potato and a hog. So it was real hard to deal with this woman. and I would go back to try to contact Medina, and I'd instantly get referred to Castle Rock. So, in my opinion, it doesn't exist anymore because they're just going to refer you to Castle Rock, Colorado.
Okay, well, I never talked to Castle Rock, Colorado, but I talked to Medina all the time, and I got certified just like I always did, just a different name on the
Last year, in 2021?
20, yes.
Wow, okay, well, then you know something I don't, because, like I said, they caused a lot of stress.
Well, it's a lot closer to me to go to Medina.
Well, it is for me too, because Colorado's, 800 miles and Medina's 140.
Well, I go through Medina every week, and I got a call from my certified the other day, says, bring your paperwork down, let's get it done. So I just go down there, and she helps me fill it out, and it's done.
Okay, if you say so. I'm just saying it's changed, and I'm not happy about it. Okay, so we talk about a lot of paperwork, and in the beginning, yes, there is a lot of paperwork, but my wife just calls it good bookkeeping, which you got to do anyway, so why not just make it part of an organic system? You have to keep a database of the seeds you have, the seeds you plant, database of the crops you have, a database of your greenhouse plants. Yes, sir?
So if you're originating organic seed, can you save your own seed?
Yes.
From the previous year and replant, if that was?
Yes. I was going to get to that later, but yes. One of the cons of being organic is seed is expensive. However, you can save that seed to next year and you can plant it. Now, I've been doing that with honeydews and cantaloupes. I haven't bought honeydew seed since 2014. So,
Beans are.
right, beans, you can save your seed and plant it back next year, so you don't have to pay for that every year.
You might want to be careful if it's hybrid seed, though.
Well,
Right.
that's a different ballgame.
That's a whole different animal, yeah. So it's more cost effective than you think. Yeah, we pay about $1,000 a year to get certified, but then through the generosity of North Dakota State Ag Department, we get reimbursed $500 of those dollars. So it's not as expensive as you might think. And that's been going on for years, and it used to be 75%, but it's recently dropped to 50%, but that's still a pretty good chunk of money. Now, back to your seed search. If you can't find the seed that you want, like that onion that was up earlier, then yes, you can go through the conventional seed companies like Gurney's and Fedco and those, and you can use those, but then you have to make sure you log that you've contacted these other people, that it wasn't available through them.
You have to have 3 seed searches.
Yes, correct. You have to have 3 of them in order for your inspector to buy off on it. You have to.
All you gotta do is document. I've never had anybody check. They just want to see the piece of paper. Where did you get it? Couldn't find it here, couldn't find it here, couldn't find it here. Okay, that fills this square.
Yeah, you just never know who your inspector is going to be, and that's, yeah.
I've never heard anybody. In fact, it's kind of a little trick for a lot of guys that want to buy conventional grain and stuff like that, because it's cheaper to have. They get
Yeah.
the same variety from their neighbor that's not certified, and they conveniently avoid checking with him to get their, sign off. You'll find 3 guys that have his seed but not certified organic, and then it costs them half as much for the seed. I'm not saying I do that, but I know guys that do.
Oh, I'm sure you do. Part of an organic system is you have to produce maps of your fields, just to show the inspector and show USDA where everything's located, because when you're certified organic, you have to rotate your crops. You can't put corn on corn on corn. When I go to the Minot Air Force Base or go into Minot past the base, for the past 5 or 6 years, there's been a cornfield every year it's corn on corn on corn. It just drives me nuts. I can about imagine what kind of pests are living in that cornfield. But when you're organic, you were required to rotate those crops, and those maps prove that to the inspector. The field history sheets are important, so what I planted last year, I have to log that, so it'll have to be different this year than it was last year. So I can't have corn in the same spot that I had corn last year.
For NOP, it's every other year. You can go back the next year after that. But you can't do it.
Okay, that's a change because I thought it was 4 years
No.
that you had to rotate.
It depends on the level of certification. You're talking about these other certifiers. They used to have higher levels of certifications to be qualified to go into Europe or EU or whatever. Well, they pretty much all agreed NOP is good enough. And so it's kind of, you can get it certified, Japanese certification, EU certification.
Yep.
But they kind of went away from it because everybody's just interested
Okay.
in NOP. And it used to be 3 years, but then,
It was 4.
well, whichever it was.
It was 4, and I've always lived by that, lived and died by that. Yeah. Harvest yields, that's just a good idea. The inspector asks me every year about what my harvest yields were last year, and I show him. It's just a good idea to have that anyway. It's a good reference for what does well and what doesn't do well in that particular year. Like I can look at my different tomatoes that I grow and I can say, oh, these did pretty well and these did not. So it's a good reference point. Okay, so you set your price. And here's where the stereotypical stuff comes in. It's too expensive, can't afford it. Well, it doesn't have to be too expensive. And I'll give you an example. Some of you know that 3 years ago I lost a kidney. Well, Mayo Clinic wants my healthy kidney to stay healthy, so I drink a lot of cranberry juice. Okay? And there's two brands, Knutson and Lakewood, that produce organic cranberry juice. So in Minot, at the grocery stores, that juice is anywhere between a bottle of it, and I told you 32 ounces, I was incorrect. I think it's 46. They're $10.50, $10.50 to $11.50 in that range. So I go to the commissary at Minot Air Force Base, and I find that same cranberry juice for $3.51. It doesn't have to be that expensive, but that's the markup. And I think it's unfair because it doesn't, I think a lot more people would even, that consumer demand would be much higher if those prices were more in check. And if you do go organic, don't get sucked into that trap because, I got to set my price. My salary has to be $10 a stock just to make it. Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be that high. So I put down this experiment we did at the market in Minot because when we became organic in 2006, we had the winter to talk about it until the summer of 2007. And we decided right then and there that we're going to have the same prices on our produce as the other produce vendors at North Prairie Farmers Market. Because if our prices were higher, there's 5 produce vendors at North Prairie, or there were last year. So if our prices are higher, the consumer's just going to go to another produce vendor and buy it because it's going to be cheaper, right? So if you have the same price point as the other produce vendor, they're going to come to you. And we've proven that, and Abigail will attest to that. It's worked very well for us. So it doesn't have to be more expensive. And we use 100% of our products are certified organic. We don't use any that aren't. And we've never done that. even back when we started, it was a challenge. I'll admit to you, it was a challenge finding seeds, but now no, it's not. Now I'm going to show you a couple of things that we grow. So this is a watermelon called Sweet Dakota Rose. How many of you have heard of it? Okay. That watermelon was developed here in North Dakota. Some friends of ours named Dan and Teresa Podol developed that watermelon, and they sell it through their own seed company called Prairie Road Organic Seed. It does very well for us. In fact, we did our own test last year at the market. We had Sweet Dakota Rose and we had Sugar Baby watermelons, and hands down, 100% people chose Sweet Dakota Rose over the Sugar Baby. So it's just a better watermelon as far as our customers were concerned. This is another one. This is a beet that comes from Podol's in Fullerton, which is in Dickey County down by Ellendale and Oaks. The most effective thing I can say about this is I gave up Detroit Dark Reds years ago, and I've never gone back to them because this is a far superior beet. Red beet. And I'll continue to use it because it produces very well, and it's got, what's that? Has great flavor. It's a uniform size. You know, there's a lot of advantages to it. And lastly, I want to show you this, which is, I apologize for the lack of clarity in that photograph, but homemade pickle, again, was developed here in North Dakota by Prairie Road, and we use it every year. We do use other pickling cucumbers. We have one called Wisconsin pickling that we use against that, but it's a good producer, so we're going to keep using it. So the seeds aren't that difficult to find, and as the years go by, there's more and more that Podol's are putting on their website, and you could almost do your entire garden through Prairie Road if you really wanted to. So being organic is more than just getting that certificate. You know, there's more to it. I mean, there's a I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for, but I can show you. I can show you on a slide to give you an example. Like, our peas are so good that beavers are brazen enough to come out of the water in broad daylight and steal them out of our garden and take them back down into the river. How's that for a testimonial?
I don't want to attract beavers. I've had enough problems with beavers already.
Well, I did too, but I was able to get a photograph. Honestly, I wouldn't have believed this if anybody told me. I wouldn't have believed it. NDSU Extension certainly didn't believe me, but I had a photograph to prove it. And I wish I would have had my big lens on the camera because I could have got closer. But yes, that is a beaver that took peas out of the field. And so I contacted USDA. There's a USDA guy who lives in Kenmare. I called him, and he came down and he trapped the beavers out of the Des Lacs River, which he took 6 beavers out of there. And so they were causing some damage, not just for us, but the neighbors. Neighbors have a home right across the river meanders, and there's a home right across the river, and they've planted a lot of evergreen trees, and those beavers were taking down some of those trees as well. So he thought it was a good idea to go in there and trap them out of there, so he got 6 of them. But I just wanted to throw that in there just to show you the.
So do you grow corn, Marvin?
No. No, I don't, because of raccoons. You know, you're on a river. You know, we're right on the Des Lacs River, and if I put corn out there, in fact, one year, this was I think 2019, we tried growing sugarcane, and it looks a lot like corn, but it doesn't produce an ear like corn. It just has other characteristics, but it kind of looks like corn. So we grew about 60 or 80 foot row of sugar cane, and be doggone if the raccoons didn't take down that sugar cane thinking it was corn, looking for the ears, and they never found them. So in a way I fooled them, but in another way they destroyed all that sugar cane that was growing. So
What are you gonna do with the sugar cane?
just an odd thing I wanted to grow. So there are advantages to being organic. We constantly get comments about the flavor at the farmer's market. Our CSA shareholders tell us. I know that, but it's great when somebody else tells me that, when a customer tells me that. And I'm sure you heard that last year too, right? Yeah, so it comes from other people. It's coming from customers. Abigail and I know that, but when it comes from the customers, you take it in, you take it for what it's worth. And there's customers who trust in your product. We've had some steady customers in our CSA since 2009, and they're still with us because they trust in our product. They know what they're getting. And I mentioned before about the strong consumer demand. And it used to be a niche market, and it's becoming a brand more than a niche. It's becoming more like Heinz ketchup or Nike. It's more and more people are identifying with organic all the time, and you can see that in the grocery stores because there's more products available, and varietal choices have just increased. They've just ballooned in the last 5 years.
Those are red onions?
That's our.
Is that Podol's variety?
No, they don't have a red onion. They just have this Dakota tears. That's a yellow storage onion.
So you got the seeds from
High mowing.
the high mowing, and then you started your plants,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a nice big onion.
Yep, that one's called Red Carpet, and in my opinion, that is the ultimate hamburger onion.
What's nice and sweet then? Oh, Rochambeau for Red Wing.
Red Wings don't produce very well.
Red Wings are great for me.
These are way better than Red Wings. I've phased those out years ago.
Yeah.
Right, Roberta, write both of those down. We're gonna do a test.
What's it called?
Red Carpet.
We're gonna do a test. We'll come back next year and
Yeah, I've not
tell you
heard
who
of
won.
I get the catalog, but I haven't.
Take a look, yeah.
We'll let you guys evaluate. We'll bring you both.
Okay, so you probably think by now that I'm a poster child for certified organic, but there are some disadvantages.
You saw that one before.
Yeah, you saw this one before. Thank you, Keith. This was, I called it the Pretzel on the Prairie because that thing went down every year and I had to redo it, and it was just awful.
Oh, this wasn't just plastic failure, this was structural failure?
Oh yeah, it was out in the open and it just couldn't handle it, and that was under that Equip contract, and as soon as that thing was over, I moved it to a location where, like I said, it's been standing for almost 10 years now. But anyway, the lack of shelf life. As an example, if we pick broccoli on Thursday, we pack it on Friday, we take it to the market on Saturday, or if we pick it on Friday, take it to market Saturday, by next week Saturday, that broccoli is going to probably be past its prime. It doesn't have a long shelf life. It's not like it's not like zingers that can sit on a shelf for 4,000 years and still be, good because it's chock full of preservatives. But the good side of that is there are no preservatives in there, so it's better for your body. And yes, it's expensive in the marketplace, and that's unfortunate. And I'll say that again because it doesn't have to be. Seed's expensive, yes. I'll admit that as well to you because, and the best example I can give you is with garlic. I say seed, it's actually a garlic bulb that you split into toes. It's extremely expensive, but you don't have to buy it next year because you can plant your own stuff back. And then there's that general public stereotype of Oh yeah, only the rich and famous have organic. Well, that's not so either, because we have a lot of customers who are elderly, senior citizens who come down to the market every week, shareholders who are elderly. We have some college students who are customers. So it's not just the rich and famous. So that stereotypical thing is kind of fading. Then I mentioned earlier about the 3-year transition, and I believe that's a disadvantage because people get motivated about going into organic, and then they get into that transition period, and then, oh, not so much, because it takes 3 years, and I can't do nothing for 3 years. So it's kind of an issue there, and weather conditions. Where we live, we're prone to flooding. We have the Des Lacs right there, so we get flooded almost every year. So there's others as well, like the wind. You can't, you grow something in a high tunnel like that, and the wind comes up and blows it into Renville County. So there's some. It's not all fun and games, but I just wanted to point that out to you. But the best way to move forward is through education. Just talking to people about it, customers especially, because as I mentioned, there's 5 vegetable producers at our market, and when customers come to our booth and they want to talk about why is organic better, we like to tell them. And I'm not going to say, well, it's a superior product, it's just better, because Peggy Walter, who's on the board of directors of this organization, is a good friend of ours, and she's a vegetable producer, and I'm not going to just badmouth Peggy because we're good friends. So we'll tell people what organic is and just let them decide. It's kind of like writing a newspaper article. You do it as objectively as you can, and then you let the reader decide. But that education is a critical element in convincing people that it's the right thing to do. And the state of California did this years ago, a long time ago, like 30, 40 years ago. They were working on the things that I'm talking about right now. And in 2005, in March of 2005, I had the opportunity to go to Natural Products Expo West in Anaheim. And I was just shocked at the number of people that went through that arena who were just gaga about organic products. This was in 2005, okay, in Anaheim. The next year, 2006, my National Guard unit got mobilized, and we were shipped to U.S. Central Command in Tampa, Florida. And so I was living in an apartment in Tampa and driving to the base every day to go to work. But everywhere I went in Tampa, everybody was just gaga about organic products. So I saw it in the West Coast, I saw it in the East Coast. So I thought, okay, this is coming our way. It may take a while, but it's coming our way. And it has. It's just a little slower than we like to think, but it has, or it is. It's transitioning. How much time have I got, Christine?
You're kind of already over, but.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Oh my gosh.
No,
It wasn't supposed to go that long.
You're the last main speaker.
Okay, so throw rotten tomatoes at me when you think you need to.
Totally okay.
What's that? Those are tomatoes. Those are Manitoba tomatoes. Yes, that tomato is the acclimated. That's the closest acclimated tomato to us of any other tomato variety anywhere, because that tomato was developed at the Ag Experiment Station in Morden, Manitoba, which Danielle and Cam, is 38 miles from Langdon. So it's acclimated almost perfectly to this climate. So it does very well.
That's indeterminate, right?
It's a slicer, yeah.
Indeterminate, right?
No,
It's determinate?
yes.
What's the length of season on that?
I'd say early August to freeze up. So yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I got it backwards.
Indeterminate.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had it backwards. Okay, so when we're talking about education, I put up this Walmart versus Negavia, and that's not a legal case. That's just the way I wrote it, but it's an example. I've been able to go to other markets beyond our own, and I've visited with people, and I go up to a vendor and I say, hey, how about those carrots? You know, I'd kind of like to get some of those carrots, but I want to know a little more. Where'd you get those? Oh, I just went down to Walmart and picked up some seed and threw it in the ground, and here I got some carrots. Well, to me, that's not really what I was looking for. But when a customer comes to us and wants to know about our carrots, I'm going to tell them about the variety. I'm going to tell them that we grow Negavia carrots. It's a carrot that was developed in the Netherlands, and it does very well here, and it's, you know, the size and the shape and the sugar and all that stuff. It's a little bit of education, but it's really, really helps the consumer. And so, yeah, we sell a lot of those carrots based on what we know about that variety and how we present that at the farmer's market. You got to talk the talk, okay? So if every one of you came over to my place for dinner, I could produce a meal that's 100% organic. And not only that, I could produce after dinner drinks that are organic. Because we practice what we preach. Now, when we moved to Carpio in 2002, if you don't know where that is, it's a little town halfway between Minot and Kenmare. When we moved there in 2002 and started gardening in 2003, the people there thought we were a couple of leftover hippies from Haight-Ashbury. Just because that's what they thought. Yeah, you're weird, you know. In fact, the manager at the grain elevator told me that. Told me I was weird. But now, all these years later, I like to think of it more like Silicon Valley. We had something back in 2006. We knew about it, and we jumped on it. And we're still there, and it's still working for us. So it's all good. And then lead by example. You know, I'm standing up here talking to you guys. I was on the board of directors of this organization for many years. You know, we have fairly new equipment. We try to pay for everything up front. I mean, you got to lead by example and show people that, yeah, we're not leftover hippies from Haight-Ashbury. We know exactly what we're doing. And education is part of that. So what organic isn't? This is what it isn't. And Abigail was asking me on the way down about CAFOs. And yeah, there are some in North Dakota, unfortunately, but they exist, they're here. Pesticides, hormones, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's those cheap knockoff products. And really what I'm talking about there is cosmetics. If you go into a drugstore or a department store and you want to get cosmetics that says organic on there, read your label, because there's a chance it's not going to be. They just say it is. You know, they're the sort of kind of organic, you know. It's kind of like being pregnant. Either you are or you aren't. You know, so careful with those products. Okay, so this was our team from last year. Andy Bissick, he's a airman at the Minot Air Force Base, and you've all met Abigail, my wife Eileen, and myself. And as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't show it very well, but here's the NOP seal, and it's right there, and so we display that. But any questions from anyone?
Yeah, what variety of cantaloupes? Muskmelons?
Cantaloupe, Hales Jumbo, and Dakota Sisters.
That's out of Podol's?
Yes, that's Podol's. Question?
So now you've had 15 years in this, there's been started on some of the expectations. Not to go into those, do you feel that things that have come out of that, like the Real Organic Project?
I'm part of that.
You are?
I
Okay,
am.
You are, okay. That was my next question is, given they don't have the legal backing, but it's a, okay, you've hit the low bar of USDA, let's say. Now you kind of, in your standpoint, is that kind of like, yep, I've gone further. I
Yeah.
hold myself to more type of thing.
Yes.
You don't get the same backing as USDA.
Honestly, I would love to be Bioswiss, because when we started this project, and I've never told you this, Abigail, but when we started this project, myself and my siblings, we inherited some money from some relatives in Switzerland. And so I wanted to go to Bioswiss for that very reason, but it was just too expensive and it was too much red tape. So I backed away from it and then went to NOP. But yeah, NOP works, and so does Canada Biologique. But yeah, we've gone to the Real Organic Project now, but I don't think we'll go beyond that, because I'm not going to be doing this that many years anymore. So
I guess, can you tell me what that is?
what's that?
What's this Real Organic Project?
Oh, it's an organization out in Utah that it's more about soil and how you use your soil as opposed to the product you have. So it's just basically proving that you're using organic practices in your soil.
Because organic allows hydroponic without the 3-year transition. Many people took heartburn to that.
I get heartburn, yeah.
It's like instant organic certification and you're in water. No person that does do it here, but that's just what people took issue with. The other one was you can grow in pots with USDA organic. And Real Organic said, no, you must be in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is kind of the debate about hydroponics?
No. No.
It's not?
Yes, Danielle.
So do you feel sad that your organic garlic is grown in my conventional garden?
Yes. Damn you.
I promise to take real good care of it anyway.
You know what? Honestly,
Fertilize it appropriately, Cap.
honestly, you buy it. You do. You put it in your dog food if you want. I don't care. You know.
And I think what's, on a different land of topic. You believe in what you're doing, I believe in what I'm doing.
Certainly.
Even though they're different, but a lot of your customers' belief in your product is related to Marv, not even related to organic.
Right.
Because you can get a different grower and people won't trust them at all.
Right.
It's all about you. And the same for our conventional garden, it's all about us. And I think for anybody, no matter what kind we're doing, you need to talk the talk. I mean, we
Right.
know what varieties we grow. Cam just put Manitoba
Well-
tomatoes in our cart right now while you were talking. So, we believe exactly what you believe. And I think it's super interesting to sit here and listen to you talk about organic when I'm conventional and see our similarities anyway. It's very interesting.
Yeah, an example of that is, we have a shareholder. Her name is Marcia Jessen. She's been doing it. This will be her 3rd year, and the first year I'd always chat with her husband Don. And we had an intern. Her name was Catherine Halter. She's living in Alaska now, but Catherine and Don and I would have these conversations, and it would always make me late on my deliveries, because that's the start of the deliveries, CSA deliveries, and I wanted to get out of there, and he just kept talking and talking. Well, you don't want to be rude, but at some point you have to go. Well, last year in June, Don passed away, and I didn't know it. And so when I delivered vegetables to Marcia in July for the first time, knocked on her door, she opened the door, and she'd come and gave me a hug and started crying, because she lost Don, and we were good friends, and we always chatted, and you have to. I mean, that's part of the persona, and it. Yeah, and I'm not just going to go down there to the Walmart and get some carrot seeds. I'm gonna take it a step further, 2 steps further, or 3 if I can, because it's only going to help my bottom line.
After today, he just put the seed you suggested in his cart. So, we all have that ability to be a community and do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there ever a problem keeping your organic status when your land floods? Don't you have to worry about what's up above you in that
Not really. We test it.
You test the land after the flooding goes?
Yeah, and believe it or not, I used to think that there would be pesticide residue from the golf course in Kenmare. No.
It doesn't.
Believe it or not, but the problem that we have is salt. Keith is gone. He was talking about salts in the soil last hour, and it's salt. It isn't pesticide residue. So
Do you water from the river?
I do.
We do too.
I do. I have.
I have worried about what I'm getting out of the river, so I might test our water this year.
Well-
But if I know upriver from me that you're already getting,
Yeah, there might be a crawfish or two in there, but
no, we are not
Considering it?
No, we are not considering it.
that's okay. You know, that's cool.
Exactly, that's okay. That's okay.
That's cool, but you know, I just
But it still is good to learn the information.
take the presentation for whatever it's worth. You know, it's up to you. Okay, anybody else? Any other questions?
After 15 years, what's the one thing that's still tough, either keeping it or just through the process? Even if it's still easy for you, what's still kind of that tough hurdle? Is it, I guess I can't even think of a good example at this point.
Cabbage worms and flea beetles.
What's the difficulty?
Just pest management maybe is still just.
Yeah, brassicas, you know, broccoli. Customers love broccoli. And we could sell a lot of broccoli, but the flea beetles are just terrible. And that's a big problem. And I'm not sure how, I've struggled with how to fix that. And in an organic system, you know, I can't just go out there and spray chemical on it. And so it's pretty tough.
How about soil fertility? What do you do for that?
Green manure, mulch, residue from the previous year. I don't use manure because it just brings too many weeds. Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, I got one more slide. And this was, you know, Christine and I talked about this. I just wanted to mention Holly. For those of you who may not know who Holly was, she was, in my mind, she was one of 3 people who built this organization. And we lost her last year. She passed away, and it was very unfortunate. But Holly was a driving force for this organization. I spent 4 years here as president of this organization, and if it wouldn't have been for Holly Mobby, I'd probably still be banging my head against the wall. But through her direction, you know, we went forward and did some great things. But there's 2 other people I want to recognize too, to put this into perspective. And the first one is Chuck Fleming. Does anybody remember who Chuck Fleming?
He was awesome. He got this organization back on its feet.
He did. Chuck was here in the beginning, and when we struggled to find what we were going to do next month, Chuck would always come with some money from the North Dakota State Ag Department, and he would help us just take that next step and move forward. And so I will always be grateful to Chuck Fleming and Holly Mobby for that. And there's a third person you may not know. Her name was Orlia Roggenbuck, and she's passed away as well. But Orlia was one of those people who, she had an independent farmers market. You know, and yes, there are a few of those in North Dakota, and yes, we probably don't like to talk about them so much because they're not members of this organization, but I just want to recognize Orlia because she was fiercely competitive. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she had a customer following that was just incredible. And she was in the Newtown Farmers Market. So for those 3 people, and most recently Holly Mobby, I just wanted to recognize them 3. Thank you.